Welcome to the manufacturing opportunity session. And I think opportunity is really the key word here. When you look at logistics and what you're trying to accomplish with your logistics, it's really all about taking advantage of opportunity that your business has. So at UPS, well, first of all, let me introduce the panel. I'm sorry. So from Yamaha Motors, we have Jason Schweitzer is the division manager for logistics. Jason. From Kia Motors, we have Mercedes Hernandez Gardner, the assistant manager in general purchasing. From Bluebird, we have Dave Whalen, senior vice president manufacturing and quality. And from Toto, we have Bill Strang, president operations for America. And I am Charlie Covert, vice president at UPS for customer solutions. And at UPS, when we look at supply chain and what we're trying to accomplish for our customers, we really take a classical DuPont model look at it. And obviously costs are important. And when people are looking at their supply chains and their logistics operations, obviously cost is always a key component and something that people focus on. But in addition to costs, we think that it's very important to look at your revenue. And how is your supply chain strategy helping you to take advantage of the revenue opportunities that you have? And that's why I was mentioning when we call this the manufacturing opportunity session, I think that opportunity word really talks to the revenue. And how is your business going about trying to capture that revenue? And how are your customers going about trying to capture their revenue? And also when you're doing that, then you're taking a look at, okay, how am I deploying my capital? How's my working capital, my fixed capital, and how can my supply chain strategy help my capital strategy? So how do you go about doing that? Typically, you look at optimization. And when people talk about optimization, they're usually in the logistics context, they're talking about inventory optimization, network optimization, and transportation optimization. And oftentimes, those optimization studies are run by themselves. And pretty impressive results. I mean, typical results can be anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20% improvement for any of those. But to really get the absolute best performance, you really have to look at how those functions interact with each other. How does the inventory optimization strategy, how is that impacted by your transportation strategy, or how is that impacted by your network strategy? Then you look at the context of what's going on in the business environment. So when you look at manufacturing trends, what's going on out there, there's been a lot of discussion about manufacturing coming back into the region in which consumption is occurring. And a lot of that is, for example, in Asia, our fastest growing trade lanes are all intra-Asia. So as the middle class in China and other Asian countries starts to develop, more and more of the manufacturing capacity in that region is going to be consumed within that region. As labor costs in eastern China increase, companies are looking at, do they go to Western China? Well, there's some infrastructure problems there. Maybe Vietnam, Thailand, other manufacturing. Or are they looking at, okay, in Europe, maybe Eastern Europe, different manufacturing capability there. In the Americas, manufacturing capabilities in Mexico or Latin America or South America, Brazil, a lot of growth there. Look at manufacturing coming back into the United States. I think that'll be some of what we talk about today. And, how does that work? And what manufacturing profile makes the most sense to do in the United States? What kind of postponement strategies can be done in the United States or at the point of consumption, if it's Europe or if it's Asia? So there's a lot going on in the manufacturing community right now, and people are really trying to figure out from a supply chain standpoint how to take advantage of those opportunities. And one of the trends that you hear a lot about in retail is omni-channel. And what is omni-channel and what does that mean? And then how does that impact manufacturers? So when you talk about omni-channel, traditionally companies may have had a single channel that they started with. Maybe they had a retail store. Then they expanded and they had maybe a catalog and maybe an e-commerce startup. And when you look at a multi-channel, those are distinct silos from a functional standpoint. And then when you get into a cross-channel strategy, there's some ability to look at the customers and how you're addressing the customers and giving them a view across those. But from an operational standpoint, it's still very much siloed. So when you talk about omni-channel, that's really where you're not only having the customer view you as a single brand, but your operations are integrated as well. So from a supply chain standpoint, if you look at just a single channel, it's pretty straightforward. Get the goods to the customer. You might have a DC. You might go from a supplier to a store, bypassing a DC. Multi-channel, obviously, you have separate customer order characteristics, and you might handle those in a different way from a functional perspective. When you go to a cross-channel, again, it starts to get a little bit more complicated. But really, when you talk about an omni-channel strategy, it's really about not only is the customer experiencing your brand in many different ways, but then also the operations is commingled. So let me give you an example. So a lot of people have heard about showrooming, where customers go into a store and they might look at your product, and then they'll get their smartphone out and they'll see what kind of coupons are out there, or what kind of price points similar products have in different locations, or maybe the exact same product in different locations. Well, with omni-channel, you're giving the customer, you're not really fighting that. You're really saying, okay, I can support an e-commerce strategy or a in-store strategy, or you leverage your brick and mortar infrastructure to support a e-commerce strategy. So then you give the customer more choices. So the customer can say, okay, I want it shipped to my house. I want to come to the store and pick it up. Well, you might be picking that from a DC in an omni-channel strategy, or you might say, I'm going to pick that product from the store that's closest to the customer. Well, the product might not be in the store. Okay, well, what do I do now? Well, maybe you want to give that customer different delivery alternatives. So, for example, shameless plug, you can have them use the UPS store as a pickup point. And so that integration of your operations is really where retailers are going with omni-channel. And how does that impact manufacturers? So it really impacts manufacturers in a couple different ways. One, if you're a manufacturer and a retailer is your customer, you really need to be aware of this omni-channel trend and addressing customers in a more cohesive manner, and how does that impact how you then need to support your retail customer. And then the second component of that is people are thinking about omni-channel as a B2C strategy, but I think more and more people take those same kinds of concepts used in a B2C strategy and apply those to a B2B strategy. So as manufacturing companies, your commercial customers are going to start saying, well, here's what I'm experiencing as a consumer. How can I use some of those same concepts and experience that and help my manufacturing or whatever my business is? So as tier 2 and 3 suppliers, for example, supply an OEM, how do you get more flexibility in the supply chain? And I think that flexibility, you see that in a lot of ways. So, for example, UPS My Choice. If anybody has not signed up for UPS My Choice, it's great. It's free. Go to ups.com. Any package you have coming to your house, you get a delivery notice. But then you also have flexibility to specify a delivery window within a 4-hour time frame, or you can specify a alternative delivery location. You can have it held at a UPS store. So it gives more flexibility. People are really starting to expect that flexibility. Just as consumers, there's a lot of demand for that. And so how that impacts manufacturing is an interesting question. So what we're going to do today is each of the panelists is going to have about a 10 to 12 minute presentation, and then we'll have some questions after that, including questions from the audience. So as you watch the presentations, please think of any questions you may have, and please don't be shy when we get to that part. So with that, I'll start with Mercedes.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to say good morning in the Southern style because the New Yorker is going to come out of me, so it's not good. So I'm just going to say good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Georgia Logistics for the opportunity to present our logistic infrastructure for Kia Motors Manufacturing Georgia, KMMG. I also like to, it is a great honor to be here a part of this honorable panelist, and they, with all the different aspects of all of their logistics and different manufacturing with different logistics is amazing how everything comes together at the end. And I also like to take this opportunity, if you were here yesterday, Dave from Bluebird had a beautiful presentation and showed the different models of his school bus. And I'm very happy that he didn't put the years of the school bus, because, thank you. I'm sorry, can everybody hear me now? Okay. I have a big mouth, but that's okay. Because I was like, man, I was on that bus. But it was closer to the original bus. So I'm glad, thank you for not putting the years on that. I appreciate that. Of course, I started when I was 6, so it's okay. 23 years is good to go. This is our logistics management. We do mostly port with the ocean, and of course, when there is anything that has to be expedited, we use air. The infrastructure is possible by the corporation and the support of all of our partnerships, and I'm meaning all of our partnership, including our suppliers. The partnership is coming from the port, which is the Georgia Port Authority, coming from the support that we had at the very beginning, and we still continue to have it from Quick Start. We had over 40,000 applications online. That is very difficult to go through and select the best qualifications in the training, and we thank Quick Start for the assistance in that and the wonderful job that they had with us. The shipping line is basically also a contribution with our third-party Logistics Globus America, and they are the ones who coordinate the logistics control and are able to get the shipment on time as we need it to our facilities. This coordination is very difficult. As you know, our manufacturing business in an automobile is a just-in-time. And that's exactly what it is, just-in-time. That part is going to be needed right there at the production line at that time. Production must not stop, and that is our main goal. We must have production continuously. And Globus America does a wonderful job on helping us be able to get that done and properly. West Point. West Point, Georgia. Why do we select West Point, Georgia? Well, there was a lot of reasons for that, and it took a lot of strategic and teaching and really a learning of the area. Our suppliers are basically approximately 100-mile radius from our plant, okay? Including the Port Authority, actually the Port of Savannah, which is our main port, was taken in consideration. The lines of carriers was taken also in consideration. So there was a multiple elements that we had to take in consideration before we selected West Point. Of course, now with the Panama Canal expansion, that will help us as well as to increase our our imports from North Korea into West Point. So that's going to be very interesting. As you all well know, the trade towards the end of last year had a difficult challenge. We all had that. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Georgia Port Authority for their contingency plans and always watching out for their customer, and we are very grateful for that. Of course, our routes are based on lead time, and the lesser time, the better to one extent. To others, of course, it's not. Expediting, we will also always have from time to time with new models, new parts that we implement. I am very thankful for yesterday, a lot of people coming up to me and saying, I just bought an Optima. It's awesome. And I'm going, great. I'm so happy that it's good. I got a Sorrento, and I'm like, awesome. That's wonderful. And they're very happy. Of course, KMMG is driven by the support and always the demand of our customer. and the safety of the family of our customers. So when people come to me and tell me that, it is a great honor to be able to work at KMMG. So continue coming up to me. That's awesome. I really love it. Now, that being said, also with the imports, we also have the exports. And I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank the CSX, with their collaboration and continuous support in delivering our demands on a time basis, always on a timely matter. This is we use them a lot for our domestic distribution, for our dealerships, and for into Canada as well. And of course, in every logistics, you have to have a map. So that's my portion of the map. That's my part of it. And I was told and given very strict instructions on how, oh, sorry, wait, I'm not done yet. I was really instructed. I'm serious. Oh, there he is. I'm glad. Maybe I should have just clicked on it. I hope you guys, I have a little video and I hope you guys enjoyed this. That's our state-of-the-art manufacturing plant right here in West Point, Georgia. And I am very grateful for that. You know, anything that you guys have, when you come up to me and say about Optima or about Sorrento, it's a great honor to tell you that it's manufactured here in Georgia. And that to me is a great honor. I hope you enjoyed the movie or the little video that I had for you. That is our main, and I'm going to call it baby, which is our Sorrento. The Sorrento that we had prior, he's so good. Oh my gosh. That you saw in this one is the 2014. I'm getting there. Great assistant, isn't he? Man, that's awesome. Okay, so that's our 2014 Sorrento, and this is our 2013 Optima. These are our most popular, and obviously the ones that are being done now in the West Point, Georgia manufacturing at West Point. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity of me being here. If you guys have any questions, please, let me know, or we'll do it at the end. And I thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Bill Strang with Toto.
I feel a little awkward being up here with manufacturers making buses and ATVs and golf carts and cars, and I make toilets. So, my videos aren't so compelling, but I will tell a very good story about what we're doing here in the Georgia area. So, thank you for having me here today. Let's walk through our story about Toto. Obviously, we're a Japanese company, headquartered in the southern island of Kyushu in Japan. And as you can quickly see, we're a pretty good-sized organization. Maybe not quite as large as Kia, but we do $5.5 billion a year in sales worldwide, and right now ranked as number one in the bathroom industry. What I find interesting as we look at the challenges of manufacturing in Georgia, obviously we're an Asian company, so we have a very strong presence in China, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, everywhere, all throughout Asia. A very strong presence, and are holding either number one or number two positions in those markets all throughout Asia. But when Toto made the decision 20 years ago to come to the United States, there were many who mocked Toto and said, "What, you're crazy? How are you going to come and make a toilet in the United States and compete against Kohler and American Standard and Gerber and Mansfield and Crane and all the rest of these companies that are out there?" Well, 20 years later, there's only 4 companies left in the United States making toilets still. And right now, Toto has grown to be number 3 in the marketplace behind American Standard and Toto. But what we also find interesting is this. Toto decided early on that in order to be successful in the U.S. market, it was imperative to have a manufacturing presence located in the region where we do business. It's important to understand the success we are having today comes as a direct result of having a strong manufacturing location here. And at first, it wasn't necessarily competitive to have that located in Georgia. But over the years, and in fact, as you can see on my slide here, we've seen some very interesting things happening over the past 10 years. And we are beginning to do more and more in the areas of nearshoring and reshoring, bringing manufacturing back to the Americas. When I joined the company back in 2003, and as you can see back in 2006, 66% of everything we sold in the U.S. marketplace was manufactured out of Asia. Today, we're at 70% manufactured near shore. That's in the United States and in Mexico. And we are seeing lots and lots of headwinds in Asia that are helping us achieve that. We also, on the domestic side, are seeing many advantages to manufacturing domestically and having a great opportunity at seeing the business continue to grow. In fact, today, the manufacturing operations in Morrow, Georgia, we produce about 22,000 toilets a month out of that factory. We can make toilets in that factory cheaper than we can buy them from Beijing and ship them over. Now, that's good news. That means that you can be a regional manufacturer, producing products and selling into the region where you do business. And we're beginning to carry that same philosophy and same approach into our efforts and activities in South and Central America. By the way, it also helps us with a lower carbon footprint, and I'll touch upon that here in a few moments. Now, what drives our industry, right? What drives our industry is this map, right? It's the logistics map that's very important to our business, but we've recognized that having presence in the United States is going to be very important to our success. But what's really driving us is drought and the lack of water, and it has propelled this nation into a position of being struggling to compete with the ability of the consumer, of the industry, and of agriculture to draw water from depleted aquifers and not having adequate resources to supply the needs that we have for a growing society, for a growing America. And so what we want to try and do is make sure that what we bring to market helps achieve that reduction. The other thing that's really been a significant impact for Toto is the continued innovation in toilets. Now you might think, how can toilets be really innovative, right? I mean, how does that happen? Well, who's had a toilet seat that slams, right? Everyone's had a toilet seat that... We don't make toilet seats that slam. They all soft close. Now, you don't know you really needed that until you actually had a chance to say, it doesn't slam. Well, that's kind of nice, right? We also have things like, well, who's been to Hartsfield Airport, Jackson Airport, right? Everybody, right? So if you go to Hartsfield and you look at the faucets and the toilets and the urinals that you use at that airport, they all use the energy that they draw from the water to make energy for the product. In other words, as the water flows across the faucet, as you wash your hands, it makes its own energy. As water flows across the toilet, it makes its own energy. It is off the grid. We don't need Georgia Power. I love Georgia Power. We don't need Georgia Power for this stuff. Who would have thought you needed that? Who has ever had the opportunity, now this is a test drive question, okay, test drive. Who's ever had the chance to test drive a washlet bidet. Oh, come on, guys. You got to get out. Yeah. If you've never had a chance to sit on a toilet seat that is heated, that as you look over to the left, there's a remote control. You press the button and it will rinse you off afterward. You've never been so clean as you will be after using a Toto washlet bidet. But who would have thought that that was important to your life? There's some very important things that occur when you begin to use that kind of a product, and it really enhances your ability to use a toilet in a way that you never thought was something you really had to have, right? But once you have it, it's spectacular. And I'll talk a little bit further about our eWater Plus in just a moment. But it's also important to recognize that with all the innovations that we have in products, it's also important and critical to make sure that you've got continual innovations coming in the operations side. And our innovations run the gamut from logistics strategies all the way through the way that we actually, quite frankly, some things as seemingly mundane as we use soybean oil as the hydraulic lifting fluid for fork trucks. We don't use hydrocarbon-based oils in our fork trucks. We use soybean oil. Because I'd rather get my oil from a farmer in Iowa than from the Gulf of Mexico. Now, is that hugely significant? Not so much. But what we strive to do is really go after what I have this little saying in here, what I call the silver bullet approach. Everyone's looking for that silver bullet, that one thing that's going to help the business be more viable locally. And I contend that there really is no silver bullet. But there is silver buckshot, which means lots and lots of little solutions can be cumulative and impactful. So whether or not we have carbon reduction programs in place, we have our soybean oil in our fork trucks, even the program that we work on today with UPS, every single shipment out of our operations that goes via UPS goes carbon neutral. And I can tell you, my customers, the plumber, most often doesn't really give a rip whether or not it's carbon neutral leaving our factory. But what they do care about, and what we do have the opportunity to say, is for those consumers and those customers who are, in fact, concerned about sustainable practices, they can see that we, Toto, are doing those incremental things to continually improve the process. And in fact, as we go through this process, it's very encouraging to me to see how our employees, in fact, become participants at a very visceral level, engaged in the process of making the product better and the process more sustainable, thus giving us the opportunity to continue to bring products to the marketplace that are successful and have great quality. We also engage in a program that we call life cycle assessment. Our life cycle assessment programming allows us to establish the carbon equivalency of every aspect of the complete value chain from the time that we actually mine the clay out of Nashville, Tennessee and Sandersville, Georgia, bring them together in Morrow, Georgia, and create a toilet. And we analyze and look at every aspect of that value chain, including all of the supply chain strategies for bringing products in from South America, Central America, Japan, China, and elsewhere. And part of that analysis has helped us really understand where's the impact. And it was interesting because you would think normally, well, it's got to be all that natural gas we burn. That's what always is driving our cost and our carbon up. In fact, it was not. In our analysis and our work, we actually found and recognized that the greatest amount of carbon impact was actually in the use in the home. It's that water energy nexus where we actually understand now today that in every gallon of water, nationally, it's 0.0037 kilowatt hours of energy per gallon of water. Doesn't sound like much, right? Well, what happens is when you begin to work on these programs and look at the continued evolution of the reduction of consumption of water that is used in the toilets and how you can be successful in the U.S. market, we look at the carbon content of every aspect of that and continue to draw it down. And part of that has helped us be in a position for folks like the City of Atlanta, who has worked with the Department of Energy in developing what's known as the Better Buildings Challenge, looking at, in just the metro area, 66 million square feet of building space and offices that are going to be renovated in some manner to save energy, water, or lighting. And our goal is to make sure that we help folks understand that within that water, there's energy being consumed. To pull it out of the hooch, to clean it up, get it to you, you use it, you put it back into your sewer system, it gets cleaned up and puts back in the hooch. If we can make that connection, that water-energy nexus connection, people begin to really recognize the value of our approach to life cycle assessment carbon footprinting. And it's helped us go after where we have the greatest opportunity for reduction in carbon content. In fact, that research has been vetted with the NREL. We are very serious about recognizing this, and it's helped us make choices about what we do on our logistics activity. Frankly, that's one of the reasons that we chose UPS and that carbon neutral program, because we wanted to further reduce the impactfulness of the work that we're doing in the transportation and logistics channels that we have today, both on the inbound side and outbound side. Now, we kind of mock LA because, frankly, Georgia is ahead of Los Angeles right now in the efforts that we're putting forth in this very effort to reduce consumption of energy. And whether or not you go across the rest of the country looking at all these other areas, it's critically important to recognize that with products that can help people reduce energy and be supplied from a local manufacturer in the United States brings value to that proposition and makes people recognize that they too can be a part of the overall conservation efforts. So as you look at these kinds of products, and next time you go to Hartsfield Airport, please look at this, because you will now look, I guarantee you, everybody will be looking at their toilets from now on. And unfortunately, you'll think about me. But as you do that, please recognize the efforts and the energy being put forth to help reduce the consumption of resources and understanding that logistics channel. We've had the great opportunity to participate with Hartsfield-Jackson Airport and, in fact, help them convert their high-flow toilets to low-flow toilets. What they have in there now is the new US EPA WaterSense voluntary standard products. That reduction helped them save 3.7 million gallons of water a month. It's a lot of water. But then also helped them recognize that they were able to save 13,600 kilowatt of energy not generated, not produced at the McDonough power plant, not generated in either a coal-fired or a natural gas-fired facility. That's impactful. And when we look at logistics, when we look at manufacturing and footprinting and putting those manufacturing operations back here, I mean, I get very excited about the fact that I'm producing products here in Atlanta, Georgia, because the product mix that I can put together and build today, the toilets I'm making today in Morrow, Georgia, by the time they come off my kiln, off the production line at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit, we put them in a box. They're in my distribution center tomorrow, still warm, bakery fresh, ready to ship to you. Right? And when you can talk about toilets the same way that bakers talk about bread, that's logistics. Thanks, guys.